I'll do my best to fill in for Harris. So thanks so much for having me. It's a great honor to be on this panel, and I have some big shoes to fill after the great presentations before me. I just want to spend a few minutes telling you a little bit about the work that we're doing with the Franklin Project and how it ties into this conversation about community and service and how we can kind of work together to solve big problems. And so the Franklin Project is an initiative at the Aspen Institute, a think tank here in Washington, D.C., and it really was created about 2 years ago when General Stanley McChrystal was giving a speech at the Aspen Institute talking about the kind of challenges of service and leadership. And they really wanted to talk about kind of how does the military build leaders and what are how does the impact of people's service in the military kind of and where they go after their time in the military. And he said, we're not asking the right question. When we talk about kind of service and citizenship, we've started to focus too much on what are people's rights as citizens, not on what are their responsibilities as citizens. And military service is one example of how people can give that responsibility. But only 1% of Americans currently serve in the military, and we don't have enough opportunities for more young people to find out what it means to work together in common purpose to solve something bigger than themselves. So he said, what can we do to make a year of service an opportunity for all young Americans so they can have that opportunity to work together with people of different faith backgrounds, different races, from different zip codes, of different ages, and figure out that they together can have an impact on a problem. And that the problem they're solving, that's great. The bigger part of that service is what it does to them, how they then can go from that year of service or that time in the military or whatever it may be and have a better understanding of how to work with others, how to overcome differences, all the things you learn through teamwork, and how service can be part of that solution. And so from that idea, we developed the Franklin Project and created this big vision of making a year of service a cultural expectation, a common opportunity, and a new rite of passage for all young Americans. And to do that, we've set a goal that in the next 10 years, we'll develop 1 million service positions for young people age 18 to 28. And that we'll do that by bringing together folks of all different backgrounds, from government to nonprofit, higher education, faith communities, thinking about how they can create service opportunities to give every young person this chance to try and kind of find their common purpose and have their impact on their community. And this isn't a new idea. It's a big idea, but we've seen through a number of programs over the last 100 years that we can accomplish big things and kind of find these solutions when government and nonprofits and others come together. So for example, the Civilian Conservation Corps, probably one of the largest examples of the power of service. In the 1930s, it brought together over 3 million young people over the course of its existence to plant 3 billion trees. Just one thing that they did was planting 3 billion trees around the country and preserving public lands all over the country. The work that they did actually preserved as much land as the National Park Service today maintains. So those young people serving in the Civilian Conservation Corps, most of them are gone. They served in the 1930s, but their mark still exists today. If you go to national parks like Gettysburg, you'll see the walls that they rebuilt to protect the public lands that we now, 80, 90 years later, get a chance to go experience because of the service that they did. The Peace Corps, another great example that we've heard a little bit about today, but over the course of its existence over the last 50 plus years, more than 250,000 young people have gone to serve overseas. And when the Peace Corps was first established, really the idea was how can we help other countries, but how can we bring the story of what our young people are doing overseas home? And how can we build people's understanding of the communities that they may never get to visit, but by talking to someone who has served and learning through someone else's experience, they can kind of see that benefit. And our most recent example of this kind of powerful service is with AmeriCorps, with VISTA, National Civilian Community Corps, and AmeriCorps State National, which are 3 great programs under the AmeriCorps umbrella that are giving tens of thousands of young people and older Americans opportunities to serve. And so there's about 80,000 people a year that are serving in AmeriCorps right now. We want to say, how do we triple, quadruple, multiply that tenfold to make it so everyone has a chance to give that year of service? And if we think about the impact that AmeriCorps in its 20 years has had, more than 900,000 young people have served in 20 years. They've contributed over 1.2 billion hours of service to the communities that they're working in. And so if we think about what that has done on that scale, let's imagine what's possible if all of us from all of our sectors of influence start thinking about how do we create more of those opportunities. So what are we doing with the Franklin Project? So we're looking at, how do we challenge each sector? So government is already leading. We're seeing it through Peace Corps and AmeriCorps. We're seeing it through the Serve America Act that was signed 5 years ago by the president as the first piece of legislation he signed as president, calling for 250,000 people serving in AmeriCorps by 2018. We're not there, we're a little off track, but everyone's pushing hard to try and get us back on track so we can achieve that goal through the contributions of federal government. We're challenging state government to say this isn't just a national problem. There are issues in your community, in your states, that you have an obligation to step forward and to support, both to give your young citizens a chance to serve, but also to make an impact on the communities that need that help. So we worked with the state of Iowa and Governor Branstad, who signed an executive order in February to establish the Governor's Council on Expanding National Service. And through the last few months, his team has been working with their state agencies to ask the question of how can a state agency use service and engage young people to actually more effectively and efficiently meet their mission. And so through partnerships with things like the Department of Natural Resources, with the Department of Education, they're thinking how can they use those public dollars that may not have been used through the lens of service, but to bring in a young person to work on public lands, to work in teams like the CCC boys of the 1930s did, and kind of revision how we use public services and the value of community service. We're working with higher education to say this isn't something that we just want government to be giving you money to do. We want you as a higher education institution to be thinking about how you can support your students, whether they're coming in or going out, to give a service here. So through partnerships with Tulane University and Vista, the president of Tulane said, we want to put our university dollars where our mouth is too. They've been a great recipient of Vista for many years, and they wanted to put up the money up front to actually pay for some new positions in addition to the ones they're receiving through the Vista program. We're working with a few other universities that are saying, how can we make it so when our students are on their way in, when they've decided they're going to come here, that as part of their development as a student, we want to give them a year of service before they formally start their training, or their education training. So Tufts University is doing what they're calling a 1+4 program, which is when you're admitted in, they give you the option of doing a year of service. Their bet that they're taking on their students is by giving them a chance to serve first, by working in teams with their future classmates, they'll be stronger students. They'll be more prepared, more mature. And I think they're also looking to see what does that mean in terms of their college completion rates. Are they more motivated? Do they have a better idea of what it is they want to do when they're done with their education? And so, and there's a lot of different ways that higher education can get involved. Working with faith-based organizations to see how can you create a service opportunity for young people in that same interfaith way that we heard about from previous speakers, where you can help meet the goals of your congregation while at the same time giving a year of service and a full-time year of service. So it's not just going and volunteering on weekends. You're giving a real commitment of time. We want your day-to-day volunteering, but we want you to commit a full year of service to have an impact on your communities. And there's so many different sectors. And I think one other place that has been a real important one for us is we need to get young people to want to serve as much as we want them to serve. And so how do we incentivize that on the back end, where whether it's higher education or employers or others say, we appreciate that you did serve. And so we're going to recognize that the same way that we recognize people who have served in the military. And so through partnership with the Corporation for National Community Service, Franklin Project, the Peace Corps, and an organization of AmeriCorps alums, they've established the Employers in National Service Initiative, which is asking companies to say, we want people who have served to come work with us. We know you've benefited, we know you've gained skills. We want you to apply those skills with our companies. Some of them are private companies, some of them are with organizations like Habitat and American Red Cross, and we're encouraging companies of all shapes and sizes to come forward to raise their hand too, to say that they want to recruit people who have done a year of service because they know the benefit that those young people will bring to their company. And the final piece that I'll mention is how we try and bring this all together is we're working on developing an online kind of portal that'll let people find service opportunities, let organizations that are that want young people to serve with them, to let them create and post positions, and also let us use technology to help crowdsource, find new ways of funding these positions, because we don't just need, there's no one single source that is going to be able to reach the level that we want. So trying to use this, looking at how we use technology to more effectively meet the goals that we're all trying to do. And I'd say just in closing that when we look back to these models of the CCC and the Peace Corps, I think the Peace Corps is just a great one when they first were talking about the establishment of the Peace Corps, Sergeant Shriver, who was mentioned earlier, wrote a memo to President Kennedy talking about what should the Peace Corps look like. And he didn't just want it to be a government-to-government process of sending people from our government off to work in other countries. He wanted it to be something that engaged nonprofits, institutes of higher education, and organizations, faith-based organizations and others, to say, how will you support a service here overseas? So how is Peace Corps owned by everyone? Government, nonprofits, and everyone. We didn't have really the infrastructure. There wasn't the civic space to do that in the 1960s, in part because there were challenges with technology and for others. But we do have that ability now. We have a strong civic sector. We have new technology tools. We have amazing partnerships in government and amazing opportunities in the private sector. And so how do we bring all of those together to create that multi-sector strategy to give us what Sergeant Shriver was envisioning in the 1960s when he helped create the Peace Corps with President Kennedy. So we have a lot of work to do, and I look forward to working with all of you on that. Thank you so much.